That's right, community. It's time for AppSec Now, a DevCentral podcast focused on the latest threats and happenings in the application security world. We'll be featuring custom curated content from F5's Security Incident Response Team and relevant data from F5 Labs to keep you up to date on the absolute latest in AppSec now. Hey there, community. That's right. It's another edition of AppSec Now. I believe this is our 32nd episode. So welcome and thanks for joining us. I am joined today by Chase Abbott and Merlin as well. So we're missing our people from the F5 Security Incident Response Team, unfortunately, today because they are at a convention.
Screwing
That's right.
off. Yeah,
they are. I don't know if I would call it screwing off. Those guys are probably hard at work. So good luck to you guys at VulnCon. Hopefully everything is going really great.
7 espresso martinis deep by now in their chats.
What time is it? It's 11 now. I don't know about that. That'll be this afternoon.
2 espresso martinis.
So we had an interesting weekend reading the articles. We had a whole lot of stuff here. This week, our editor from CERT was Arvin. So thank you, Arvin. We really appreciate your efforts. And there was some interesting stuff here. We're going to start off very close to home with something called IngressNightmare. And IngressNightmare was an impact that was felt in the NGINX world. Guys, what do you think about this one? Pretty serious?
It's serious based off the amount of people that have downloaded that OSS project. So the exposure is it's a wide footprint with a pretty, if I can get admin access, that's kind of an issue. So it is a big deal. It is patched. The community team that maintains Ingress NGINX controller, which is different from NGINX Ingress controller, that's a whole thing, have done a great job of keeping up on that and patching it. So kudos to the OSS team running that repository.
That's right. And I think controller versions, 1.12.1 and 1.11.5 are fixed. So definitely upgrade to the latest, and you should be.
Yeah. And
okay.
One thing to note is people are Googling this and ending up on F5's repository. It's technically not owned by F5. It's the original NGINX Ingress source that got forked off and maintained by a much larger group of people for a little bit extra customization. But so many people end up on F5.com. We did publish a security advisory under 150538, just so we can help people get to the solution quicker.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is good. And of course, the impact is felt in Kubernetes land. So
huge, because Kubernetes doesn't work without Ingress control. So everybody's using one, whether it's F5's, whether it's this open source project, whether it's somebody else's. In this case, it is a code execution and disclosure of controller secrets available. So it is something that you don't want to take your time on or go around the merry-go-round of discussing. This is a quick fix, not a let's wait for change control and just see what happens. Get it in there.
And as I understand it, this is the majority. This is the most popular Ingress controller as well, right?
I think so.
If you're not sure, chances are you're using it.
Yeah,
more than likely. That was my understanding.
I think when they scanned theirs, they were able to pulled at least 6,000 deployments that were on the internet at risk. That also brings up that kind of other thing. It was like there are certain things that shouldn't be exposed to the internet, and this is kind of one of those, like, let's just beat this dead horse. Along with management ports and other things like that, let's just lock that down so only the Kubernetes API server can access admin controllers.
Yeah,
that's just me though, right?
That's probably the best way to go about it, really.
Yeah.
I gotta have some sympathy for the folks who ended up in this position, because
I do too.
Kubernetes is so goddamn complicated.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of challenge anyone to just roll up the sleeve and say, I'm going to spend a day or two and I'm going to come out understanding this, right?
That's a good
Like,
point.
the system as a whole is just so complicated. You'd be forgiven for getting frustrated and just trying to make it work and getting into trouble like this.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's not just about, is the admissions controller directly internet accessible? There's also the server-side request forgery angle, right?
Mhm.
Those are rife and very, very hard to prevent occurring. And yeah, so this is like another one of those vectors. You can imagine a security team going, well, we are not exposing the admissions controller to the internet, so we're good. Maybe not. Like, somebody's poking around, they're going to find this. So it's another one of those gotchas. And it's kind of, I mean, in a way, there's nothing particularly special about this issue, right? This was, someone took NGINX and they're like, well, NGINX is configured a certain way. Let's shoehorn it into the way Kubernetes works. And in that translation, you have injection potential. And as we saw with Wiz's awesome work, they proved they can get RCE, which is kind of game over.
Yeah,
so
that's
we'll
a
see
good
these
point.
again, basically.
Yeah, even if it's not on the internet, this is still an exposure. I mean, it only takes 1 or 2 steps to bypass other things to then have the same threat posture.
And this isn't just an instance of a problem, right? It's not like you patch this and you're never going to hear about it, this kind of thing again.
No.
It's funny. I mean, of course, the guidance is great. Just keep your admin stuff off the open internet and whatnot, like we've mentioned. But
Just
I have
keep
to
it locked
mention,
down, period.
one intriguing thing. When I was still in my operations career, I can recall I worked outside of our corporate firewall on the internet properties that we owned, and we ended up finding there was an instance where we couldn't the internal security team of this particular company couldn't figure out how a particular web property inside the firewall was being hit. It turned out someone figured out how to transition a LaserJet printer into an internet proxy.
Classic.
It was amazing. I mean, they proxied through the printer and
so
bam,
good.
side door.
Yeah.
One interesting thing to note, on March 27th, we also released an attack signature update for this vulnerability. So if you are utilizing F5 security products, you can cover yourself while you patch.
One more point on the IngressNightmare is that, it's great guidance to say, let's lock it down.
Yep.
It's kind of almost intractable to do that. I mean, you have to have a lot of, you can go and get a vendor managed, cloud managed Kubernetes. That's great, rather than installing your own, right? That's helping, but it's all, as with most complicated cloud things, it's a moving target to even know how everything works. And so locking it down is kind of a losing game, because Kubernetes wasn't built with security first in mind, right? It's just not going to be that way. That is never what it's going to be. So it's always going to be some flavor of latent tire fire.
True.
And you just hope that you're getting all the business benefits to offset that risk.
Well, agreed. And it is very tough to kind of wrangle an open source project when you are a company that owns it. And speaking of that, actually, we've got our absolute next piece of news, which is a critical CVE in Next.js. This is CVE 2025-29927. And really, this is a pretty popular open source web development framework. I mean,
Slightly.
Yeah.
It's the go-to rich client for JavaScript. Yeah.
1 or 2 people use it.
Absolutely. 9 million weekly downloads on NPM. So that seems to be a pretty large footprint. And I think that, it leaves a pretty gaping hole. What did you guys have to think about this particular one?
That's all Merlin's.
I got 2 main points. One is, so disclaimer, I haven't read the code for this, right? I haven't looked into exactly how the exploit works. I've more kind of trusted what third parties have said about it. Wherever you have complexity, right, you're going to have bugs. And when that complexity is in something important, like authenticating requests, you're just signing up for trouble. And I think what's a cautionary / interesting note here is that Vercel effectively owns Next.js, and they're kind of, Next.js as a service. We'll host it for you, vendor. Maybe I shouldn't have named vendor names, but the challenge here, or the rub, is that primarily the security focus is always going to be, is our hosted implementation secure? And the answer is yes, right? The Vercel did not have any issue here, and that's because they re-implement their backend for when they host. So there's kind of two real paths that they need to worry about. The path where it's hosted, is it secure? And the path where you self-host and you go from run it yourself. And that's the vulnerable population, right? And so balancing those priorities is going to be a challenge. And it's always going to be a contention in priority.
I would think so. And, of course, we did just mention NGINX. We see that all the time. So I don't think there's a ton to say about this one, aside from the fact that we also released an attack signature update for that as well. So that if you are kind of using F5 security products, you can, in fact, just upgrade your security posture there and utilize.
Yeah, I think the Bleeping Computer article is pretty good, because originally, I'll just add one note. Originally, they thought it was only for some older versions, but as they kept inspecting, they're like, oh, this version 12, 13, 14, like, okay, this is actually really important to patch. So I do appreciate the thought behind researching how many versions that affected. That was really cool on the dev team. So nice work on that.
I mean, I think that doubles down on the point. If it took them long enough to figure out which versions were affected, that means it was complicated. Right?
Yeah.
So that's
very complicated.
Like shorthand for you have problems.
Mhm.
That seems to be a theme with a lot of the things that we cover, for sure. This next one coming up, we have a Chrome 0 Day, which I think has some wider reach. It seems like we may have bigger problems than just kind of like, your Google Chrome that you have on your desktop. It appears that this has impacted Chromium. Is that that's what we've verified? Yes.
It is in the Chromium release categories in the stable channel. This was updated for 134.0.6998. I mean, the normal one that we all love. It's not, the actual Chromium bug is private right now, just because there is a security flaw in the wild, and they just kind of want to make sure there's no other ways to mitigate their sandbox. But that's kind of the issue why it's kind of locked down. It is their secure sandbox that was affected. So the only thing you read on that CVE from Chrome releases is an incorrect handle in unspecified circumstances in Mojo for Windows. And Kaspersky was the one that kind of saw this. They didn't see any of the actual malware in use, but we do know there was a exploit in the wild when this was published and corrected. Good times.
Oh yeah, I think the Kaspersky quote was, "The vulnerability really left us scratching our heads."
Yeah.
As without doing anything obviously malicious or forbidden, it allowed the attackers to bypass Google Chrome's sandbox protection. And I love this, as if it didn't even exist. That's
yeah. And then the adorable part was the register article actually mentions this is Firefox like, oh, that sucks. Let's go look at our own sandbox. Oh, we have something similar. Let's patch that really quick. There was no known exploit in the wild on that, but still that was kind of funny and cool that they were able to find that and fix it so quickly. But Merlin, you mentioned before we started this on, it's not just your Chrome browser is the issue.
Yeah, it's everywhere you have Chromium. Because Chrome itself is amazing at updating, right? It's gonna push you to updating as soon as it can.
Non-stop all the time.
That's amazing from a security posture perspective. But what about all those places where you have Chromium and you don't necessarily know, right? If a very security conscious user hears Chromium is vulnerable, go update. Well, are they going to check their, their Electron apps, their Slack app, their Teams app, or
Mhm.
any other little convenient app that just runs on your computer, but it turns out it's not native. Visual Studio Code, right? There's pretty much, it's such common practice these days for
Yeah.
an app version that runs on your desktop to be an Electron app, and those are all Chromium, and they're inevitably going to lag behind. Maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe people will take it so seriously that they compel their users to update real quick. But my fear is this will be around for potentially months on desktops.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons they're not publishing the details of it, because it's every downstream browser that uses Chromium as source is going to have to patch.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love Vivaldi.
Interesting that it the article indicates that it's seemingly used by snoops to target certain folks in Russia. I wonder who.
Yeah,
those
I don't know what that
folks are.
means. Like,
Yeah.
is there just a guy we don't like over there? I don't know. Sure.
Yeah.
Then there's all that developer tooling that just runs Chromium
Mhm.
to like exercise tests, and are they sanitized? Yeah, I don't know. It's a you can easily be years behind on those kinds of tooling.
Yeah, and regardless of all any political ramifications, Kaspersky has always had an amazing research team that just is always at ground level on these kind of things.
You bet. Definitely great research coming out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Speaking of great research, maybe not great research. This is just to kind of note, there have been some more security copilot agents released by Microsoft. 5 of these, 11 were released. Is that right? 5 of them? Yes, 5 came from Microsoft security partners. So we're not talking just Microsoft written stuff. And if you're not familiar with security copilot and the idea here, it's going to be like an agentic AI kind of overlay for your security posture, which is scary in itself to me. But at the same time, it's kind of good that we're automating some of these tasks and maybe helping our blue teamers really get all the data that they need to. Anything interesting that you guys saw in here? Seemed like
that's the whole issue. No,
yeah.
Not yet. I mean, this is still the infancy of beneficial agentic for the masses, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right now, it's just looking at data and making assumptions for us and providing it into easy to navigate context, which is pretty easy for an agentic agent. As we were talking about a little before, my love is that, so we now have these agents looking at security logs. What's the level of sensitivity of these security logs? And how is this agent told to manage data governance and data classification? This was a big argument we had. It wasn't an argument. It was actually just a really good cocktail hour discussion on if it's an agentic process, it is a user acting on a set of instructions and has to be treated as a user. Zero trust applies to agentic agents.
Yeah.
Because we don't know if that agent is malicious. We don't know if it's going to determine to be malicious. Like, it could either be written with intent from the author to be malicious. It can evolve itself to get frustrated and try to figure out another better way to get the data to complete its task. So there's a lot of ways that it can really screw around with sensitive information. And we're now giving it access to security logs. So theoretically, an agent can then trace back to the steps of, all of these security incidents means we have a vulnerability in maybe that firewall or that API. And so based off if that agent wants to play fair or not, it's going to tell you how to fix it. It's going to give you a good report, or it's going to give the malicious author that information instead and then fake it till you make it. I am slightly paranoid, but that's my issue.
That's a good thing. And
Treat it like a user.
I don't think every security company is making sure that their logs are sanitized. Like the first time I ever saw a data guard from us, right? In what is the product formerly known as ASM, which is now AWAF, right? That was something that I loved. The first time I ever saw our product like blank out social security numbers and credit card numbers and things like that before they went into the logs. It was like mind blown. Boy, I didn't even think, wow, my logging devices are.
Well, Merlin's probably seen it. It's like you get different information based off how you authenticate into, say, Splunk or Sumo Logic, because I'm going to need different levels of data in order to make determinations on what's going on. When I was on the DevCentral team way back in the day, I had access to all the web data, but it was sanitized. But when I was in IT, I had a lot more sensitive data available to me. It was still sanitized, but it gave me a little bit more process in the infrastructure.
Yep.
So unless you're treating that agent with that same level, and I'm sorry, when people are installing this stuff, more times than not, like, oh, just give it this service level account access, which is way too much. So this is, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. This is the infancy of agentic modeling and behavior. So you're going to get a lot of, oh, just give it full permissions. Who cares? Whatever.
Yeah.
And
I
later on,
kind of,
it'll start getting pared down.
I'd love them to share their threat model. That would be so interesting because, I mean, when they say AI, I hope they mean classic machine learning, because that's, it's easier to reason about what it'll do with untrusted input. If it's like modern day Gen AI, LLM, we still don't know all the ways that can be exploited, right? We're just going to see untrusted input at scale. So I hope it's all very structured input and very constrained for my money.
Actually, that's a good point. In this instance, ML makes a lot more sense for processing security logging information. Machine learning against security log, or I mean, not machine learning, trying to do a LLM for generative AI for security logs doesn't make sense. Like, I don't need you to interpret and then come up with your own security logs. I need really good data on existing logs, that is what ML is great at. So maybe we're limiting some problems by having agentic agents. I mean, that's a redundant double entendre.
Well, if I'm taking a look at some of the third-party ones here, there's the alert triage agent by Tanium as a for instance, and that is helping security analysts prioritize alerts. Right there, that tells me that it's reading your alerts, which would probably indicate a large language model.
Well,
but that also sounds less dangerous, right? That's not.
It does sound less dangerous. It's fancy pager duty.
I mean, I guess the details really matter, and me personally, I know none of the details.
I know some of them. This is one of the spaces we've been looking at for AI ops, is just trying to have more intelligence behind acting on a specific behavior, because you want the security person to know about what happened without having to fix what happened. Like, hopefully it got fixed quickly before a user involvement had to happen. But unless you trust your AI agent to solve that mitigation or solve that issue quickly, that's part 2 of it. So this is kind of the crawl, walk, run of automating your security posture. And it's getting there. But how well do you know your agent?
Yeah, I think that's a big
good
question.
title or something.
that is a good question. We're going to have to ask that more often for sure.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd like to see a demo of Security Copilot. I haven't seen one yet, and I think it would be neat to see. Also, of course, if you're out there listening or watching and you are using Microsoft Security Copilot, if you have any thoughts about how that has been going, please just let us know. You can always leave a comment on the video or find me on LinkedIn. I'm always available there.
I wanted to look at one thing on that really quick. We have some links down there, but Aviatrix had an agentic agent for troubleshooting network issues.
Yep.
That one's they are a competitor. We acknowledge that. I'm curious to look at that one, because how deep are you going? Are you looking at flow? Are you literally doing an SSL dump, decrypt, and actually looking at the content of that? Because at that, like, I can tell you anything you want. Big IP is really good at that.
Yep.
But are they trying to do it at a network layer for an entire backbone? I'm curious. That one I'm going to research into, because that actually sounds the most interesting to me.
Oh yeah, and that's for root cause analysis on network issues.
And I'm
So
like, how many? I mean, that's what extra hop was for. Like, you're doing packet analysis to figure out what's going on. So,
well, I'm
hot
sure.
stuff.
Hopefully, none of that will lead to anyone being pwned. Like, have I been pwned?
Nice segue.
Yes, that's right. Have I been pwned is a site out there to make sure that you haven't been pwned. And unfortunately, their mailing list was leaked from their. It was from Mailchimp, right? Yeah, Mailchimp, and it looks like 16,000 records, and about half of those were people who had unsubbed. So if you used to be a Have I Been Pwned mail list user, you have probably got your email leaked, at least as one of their users. Don't know that this one is a huge a huge risk. It's just more of kind of like it's good to tell the community. You guys have anything to say about this particular? I don't think we didn't spend a lot of time talking about this.
I mean, it's pretty benign, but I do appreciate Troy Hunt's write-up on his domain, because it was his mailing list. He does a great post-mortem on what happened and how to prevent that, and all the little things that go into this kind of thing, this kind of pwning happening. He also is kind of annoyed at MailChimp, the fact that these people that unsubscribed are still on their list just without a checkbox.
Well, I like the fact that that he actually did come right out and say that it was a sneaky fish that got him.
It's a great article. It's a great article.
I mean, I like watching people admit, because anyone, I mean, we're all strong security professionals, and I still have stuff where I remember I had something come into my inbox, and I went and I looked at it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind on my on my reporting goals, and clicked on the thing before I even thought about it, and went, oh my gosh, if that had been a fish, I would have been just done right there. Sometimes they have that data and they can get you.
My takeaway from this is that everyone gets fished. I mean, we knew that the data, that there's no one special that doesn't get fished, but this is just great evidence.
Yep, even the best of the best. So, in addition to that pwnership, I don't know if that's actually a word.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's not.
I love it.
It's not good. But Blacklock, a ransomware gang, ended up getting pwned, which I absolutely love hearing about this stuff. Right, Blacklock is ransomware as a service, and these guys have been hitting up the likes of things like Pastebin with what was it? What was it? Okay, so in quarter on quarter, the increase in their data leak posts last year, 1,425%. So these guys are really ramping up in terms of the stuff that they're putting out there.
They're successful.
And it looks like Resecurity was able to jump in and own them.
Or repone.
Yeah, Resecurity repo ownership. So, and that was through Tor, which that's an interesting one, eh?
Yeah. So really good shout out to Resecurity. Great write-up, excessively long write-up, because they do a lot of pictures, which I kind of love, and a lot of code that they did alert appropriate authorities, because this is an international ring, before they published on it. So they allowed people sufficient time to really dig in with investigations before Blacklock can back out and like kind of redo what they're known for.
It looks like Dragon Force was also mentioned using similar techniques to also pwn Blacklock and their data leak site.
I like Dragon Force's name better. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I mean, Resecurity is nice, but I mean, Dragon.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Okay.
It was a long read. It's worth it if you got the time. What was interesting was just some of the territorial behavior behind these ransomware gangs, and this one normally calls out Eastern Bloc countries, like, hey, don't attack people in these regions, because this is where me and my friends are from. But this group, which is notoriously out of Russia and other Eastern nation states actually called out China as one place to not try to attack either, which is uncommon. So that was kind of an interesting little, are we having some friendship or
Issues?
competitions going on? We don't know. It'll be interesting to watch. I'll be checking our resecurity for a while to see what they find out.
Well, personally, I'm dedicating this story to Aaron Brailsford, who used to always really rejoice whenever any sort of gang ended up getting pwned. He loved talking about those when he was on this show. Aaron, if you're still out there watching, buddy, great to talk to you this past week, by the way. Okay. Well, any other closing thoughts on this or any of these other stories, guys, before we kind of...
Nope. Read the link or read the post by Resecurity. Great write-up.
Awesome. On that note, I want to thank you guys for joining me this week. Always, Chase, Merlin, thank you.
You're
Great to see you
welcome.
both.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. And community, thank you for tuning in and listening. We're really happy to have you consume this data on AppSec Now. Peace.
Thanks for checking out AppSec Now, a DevCentral podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And if so, please consider clicking like, subscribing, or even writing a review. Available on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube.